folks, is Legacy Planning, Securing Your Future with Ashby Price. We all are concerned about our future, so this is a really important course for you to be taking. You're going to learn a lot, and it's going to get you thinking about how to actually plan for your future and leaving that legacy behind. Ashby, if you could go to our Empower People Oath, which is the next slide, please. So repeat after me. I, Tiffany Joy Green, do solemnly swear to accept the lifelong obligation to hone my superhero powers and apply those superhero powers to the good of the people I serve. I will promote and add to the ongoing success of Empower People, its members, and the people, organizations, and communities it serves. I will help prepare the next generation of superheroes. I am driven to be a positive change agent for those I serve and interact with. And we'll just take a moment. I'd like to do this. For some of you might find it cheesy, but if you just give it a try, you're going to love it. Hands on the hips, look up to the sky. This is called superhero pose. And you know what it's going to do? It's going to help you feel empowered, and it's going to be a lasting effect. Just hold it for a second. And for the rest of the day, you're going to feel like a superhero, that you can take anything on. I encourage you to do that. Any moment you're feeling a little down, strike superhero pose. And now I pass the baton over to Ashby.
Okay, well, great. I'm just fixing my camera. Sorry.
Anytime something like that happens, I show my age because I constantly think Blair Witch Project.
Well, great. Well, we'll appreciate everyone's time and thank you. Really want to go through today some legacy planning. It's really important as you're thinking about kind of the next steps and not only your future, but also the next generations in your family, really what you want to do ultimately, with the rest of your life and with your wealth as well. Just really wanted to provide a quick background. Who am I? Born and raised in Richmond, founded my own financial planning firm almost 5 years ago at the very beginning of the pandemic in 2020. So next month will be the 5-year milestone. I've been in the financial services industry for over 25 years. Currently sitting on a few nonprofit boards. Just joined a nonprofit board, and I'm currently the president of the CFA Society of Virginia. We have about 660 members throughout the state of Virginia, and really the goal of CFA Society of Virginia is try to improve the ethical and professional standards in the investment industry. Really community driven and focused on giving back to the community. I really believe that giving back to the community, especially in Richmond, it's amazing to see how the nonprofit community has evolved over time and really improved over time. And I'm a big believer of paying it forward. And I've noticed where when I pay it forward, when it comes back around, eventually it's tenfold. So it's all about how can we help others? How can we connect and collaborate with others as well? So really, what is legacy planning? Legacy planning is the process of preparing for the transfer of your wealth and assets to your loved ones or any beneficiaries after your passing. It's more than just writing a will. It actually encompasses many things, including estate planning, financial planning, charitable giving, and healthcare planning. Really think about it as the tip of the iceberg. Will is visible at the tip, but really beneath the water are all the other elements like trusts, power of attorney, healthcare directives that really help support a complete plan. But what's the purpose of a legacy plan? Really, in simple terms, legacy planning ensures that what you built in your life goes to people and causes that you really care about in the way that you want. For example, you can make sure that your children's education is funded or that a favorite charity receives a donation, rather than leaving those decisions to a judge in the court or the state's default rules. Beyond the assets, really you need to think about your values and wishes. It's not only about the money. Legacy planning it also includes passing on values, personal items, and instructions for healthcare in your final arrangements. It's your chance to leave a clear guidance on everything from like who should raise your children if you have minor children, and if something were to happen to you, to how you want your medical decisions handled if you're unable to make them yourself. Proper legacy planning gives you the peace of mind today. You're effectively leaving a loving roadmap for your family. Without a plan, your family might face legal hurdles, delays, or conflicts in an already difficult time. So with that solid plan, you spare them and you that burden. They'll know your wishes so you can act on them accordingly. So everyone has a unique vision for their legacy. Really, personalized planning is so important because legacy planning is not a one size fits all. Every individual and family situation is different. So your plan should really reflect your unique family, assets, and wishes. Don't worry if your plan looks different from your neighbors. It really should, because your situation is likely going to be different from theirs. For instance, your priorities might be providing for a child with special needs, where someone else might focus on leaving the business to their heirs. So it's very different for different families. I want to give you a quick example. Like, one person might dream of funding their grandchildren's college education, and another want to ensure that their family cabin stays in the family for generations. And someone else might feel passionate about donating to a beloved cause and nonprofits. All of these goals are valid. Legacy planning can accommodate all kinds of visions. For example, a family friend set up a scholarship for her alma mater and was part of her plan, while her brother's plan was simply to make sure that each of his children could buy a home. Both plans were very different, but each fit the wishes of the individuals. And really do what works for you. The key takeaway is just that: do what works best for you and your loved ones. There will be general best practices, but ultimately your values and goals should drive decisions. An estate planning attorney can present options such as trusts, gifting strategies, and other ideas, but you get to choose what feels right and what's best for you. This personalized approach makes your legacy plan meaningful and effective for your specific situation. In addition, you want to have flexibility because everyone's vision is unique. Legacy plans can be highly customized. You have the flexibility to decide who gets what, when they receive it, and how they receive it. For example, if you know one child manages money responsibly and another struggles, you can give one an inheritance outright, but set up a trust to manage the other's inheritance. This kind of tailored planning ensures your plan truly works for your family dynamics. Do you know estate plans are often neglected? Despite how important it is, many people put off estate planning. In fact, only about 1 in 3 Americans has a will or an estate plan in place. That means that so many have no formal plan for their assets if they pass away. This lack of planning is widespread, even though every adult needs some form of an estate plan. And there's some common misperceptions. Why do so many delay planning? Misconceptions play a big role in this. Nearly half of Americans, about 47% of Americans, can you hear me? Sorry, it broke up.
I can hear you. There's been no issues on my end.
Oh, okay. Yeah, about 47% of Americans believe that estate planning is only for the ultra wealthy, while 49% say they don't think their assets are valuable enough to need an estate plan. These are myths. Estate planning is for everyone, not just millionaires. Even if you consider your assets modest, think about personal items, keepsakes, or digital assets. Plus, estate planning covers things like appointment guardians for children or for making healthcare decisions. It's issues that affect all families, not only the rich. There's some consequences for not having that proper plan. The impact of these misconceptions is real. Many people don't create a will, say it's because they don't have enough to leave anyone. But consider this, 40% of Americans over the age of 60 still have not created a will. even though that's the age when many have accumulated a lifetime of memories and assets. Without a will or a plan, their families could face court delays or conflicts. We often hear stories like a woman who passed away without a will. Her two children then had to go through a lengthy court process to determine how to split even simple things like a family car or furniture. It's a scenario that proper planning can really prevent. The good news is it's never too late to start. The encouraging part is that awareness is growing. If you're among those without a plan, you're not alone. You can take the steps now to fix that. Estate planning doesn't have to be overwhelming or done in an old age. Even young adults can start with basic documents. The fact that these statistics are measured shows that professionals are unaware or are aware and ready to help people overcome these hurdles. The bottom line is don't let this stop you. Regardless of your age or wealth, taking action on estate planning now will put you ahead of most Americans and protect your loved ones from future headaches. Here's some estate planning documents that are essential. Your last will and testament. This really is a cornerstone of the estate plan. With this legal document, you specify who inherits your assets and property when you pass away, and you can also name a guardian for any minor children. It's essentially your voice after passing, and make your wishes clear. For example, you could state that your home goes to your spouse and $10,000 goes to your favorite charity. Without a will, state law typically decides who receives what, which might not align with your wishes. Every adult should have a will, even if it's simple. A revocable living trust could be an option as well. A living trust is another tool to transfer assets, and it can help your estate avoid probate, the court process of validating a will. With a trust, you transfer ownership of your assets into the trust during your lifetime, and upon death, these assets go directly to your named beneficiaries by the terms of the trust. One benefit is privacy and potentially faster distribution. For example, instead of your house going through a public probate process, your trust would immediately transfer your house to your children or whoever you designate without court intervention. Trusts also allow for you to set conditions. For example, your kids could receive funds for college at age 18, but the rest of their inheritance would be received at age 25. Not everyone needs a trust, but if you have substantial assets in complex family situations or privacy concerns, it's an important document to consider. Another document is a durable power of attorney. This is more for financial aspects. This document names someone you trust to make financial and legal decisions on your behalf if you become incapacitated. Think of situations like illness or accidents that leave you unable to manage your affairs. The bills still need to be paid, and financial matters can't wait. Without a power of attorney, your appointed agent can step in and handle things like paying your mortgage, managing your bank accounts, or speaking with insurance companies on your behalf. Without it, even your spouse could be stuck petitioning a court to get authority to handle your finances. Choose a person who is responsible and financially savvy, because they may need to act quickly to keep your affairs in order. Another important document is the healthcare directive and healthcare power of attorney. These are really critical for your medical wishes. A living will or advanced healthcare directive lets you outline what medical treatments you do or don't want if you're unable to communicate. For example, you can state your wishes on life support, resuscitation, feeding tubes, and other items. A healthcare power of attorney, which is often called a healthcare proxy, allows you to name someone who will make healthcare decisions on your behalf if you cannot. Together, these documents ensure that doctors and families know your preference. For instance, some people strongly prefer not to be kept on life support in certain conditions. The healthcare directive communicates that. And the proxy lets a trusted person like your spouse or a close friend or a relative speak with doctors and give consent, knowing your wishes. This spares your family from guessing or disagreeing about your care. And another thing is beneficiaries. Beneficiary designations are really important. Not a standalone document that you draft, but many accounts like life insurance policies, retirement accounts, and other investment accounts need to have updated beneficiaries. Make sure they're up to date. I typically believe it's best practice on an annual basis to review the beneficiaries of all your accounts. And if you're going through a life changing event through a divorce, a remarriage, you're having a child, it's always a good time to reevaluate and update your beneficiaries accordingly. A lot of times the beneficiaries override what's written in your will for those particular accounts. A common pitfall is often forgetting to update a beneficiary after a life change. And that could lead to an unintended person receiving the money. Make it a habit to review these forms on a regular basis, and again, at least annually, to ensure they align with your overall plan. There's some other documents to consider as well, and it really depends on your situation. Like a HIPAA authorization form, that can actually let your medical agents access your medical records. Another one is a letter of intent. It's an informal letter to your family detailing your personal wishes, like funeral preferences or even messages to your loved ones. They aren't always essential in every list and for every family, but they are very beneficial and provide guidance. The main point is to cover the main four documents: the will, the trust, the power of attorney, and healthcare directive, and then build out from there if needed. Really, there's some action steps that you should take. Take an inventory of which of these documents you have. And if you don't have any, start with these four documents and then which ones you might be missing. If any are missing or outdated, consider making it a priority to draft or update them. An estate planning attorney can assure these documents meet the state's laws and work with the state's laws accordingly. And you really want to start with your advisory team as well. You don't have to go at it alone. Estate and legacy planning can often feel complex, but the good news is they're professionals who specialize in each piece of the puzzle. Start by assembling a trusted advisory team to really help guide you. The team often includes an estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, and a tax professional like a CPA or accountant. Think of them as your coaches in the different domains: legal, financial, and tax, all working together for your plan. An estate planning attorney is your legal expert and helps draft wills, trusts, power of attorney, and other documents. They keep up to date with state laws, which often change, and make sure that your will is properly witnessed or that your trust is funded correctly. They can also advise on strategies to avoid probate or minimize estate taxes if that's relevant. Really, essentially, the attorney makes sure your wishes are on paper and can be carried out in reality. For instance, if you have a blended family or a complex wish, the attorney figures out the proper legal way to do that. A financial advisor, this person really helps you with your overall financial picture. They help with retirement planning, insurance needs, and investment strategies. It's really, do you have sufficient life insurance to protect your family? How can you grow and then eventually transfer your assets most effectively in a tax efficient manner? They can also coordinate things like setting up 529 college savings plans for children or grandchildren to really help with carrying on the legacy and educating family members. A tax advisor can really help you minimize taxes out of your estate, because taxes can take a big bite out of the estate if it's not properly planned for. And a tax professional helps you navigate tax implications of your legacy decisions. They can advise on things such as estate tax or inheritance tax limits, the benefits for gifting assets during your lifetime, or how charitable contributions can give you tax deductions now and reduce your estate later. For example, if you have a large estate, a CPA might suggest gradually gifting portions of your heirs each year up to the annual gift tax exclusion, or reduce the size of your taxable estate. They might help with setting up a trust that has tax advantages. Even those who are not super wealthy, there could be capital gains taxes or property taxes to consider. So the CPA or tax advisor ensures that there are no surprises for your heirs. The team coordination and communication is really important as well. You want all of your advisors to be on the same page. The best scenario is a quick meeting or call with you and all of your advisors present whenever you make a major plan update. This way, nothing slips through the cracks. For instance, your attorney sets up a trust, and your advisor can help retitle your investment accounts into that trust. As the client, you are the quarterback of the team, but a good team will often coordinate among themselves as well. Do it yourself versus professional help. While there are DIY options out there, having a professional team means you benefit from expertise and experience. These advisors can help spot issues you might not see. For example, a lawyer might ask, what if your primary beneficiary predeceased you? Let's include a contingent beneficiary. That's something someone might overlook. So if possible, engage these professionals. It often saves money and heartache in the long run by getting it right the first time. If you haven't already, consider identifying and reaching out to these professionals. You might start with one, and they can often recommend others. Many people start with their financial advisor or ask friends for a good estate planning attorney. Interview them, make sure that they understand your values and that you feel comfortable working with them. Building the proper team now means you'll have support whenever you need to update your plan or handle life changes. Okay, planning for your legacy. Really, you want to communicate your wishes. Don't avoid the conversation. Legacy planning can be an uncomfortable topic for many. After all, it involves you talking about death, money, and sometimes sensitive family issues. It's natural for some families to shy away from these discussions, but be proactive and thoughtful, because this planning includes having these conversations. Opening up this dialogue is one of the best things you could do for your loved ones. It might feel awkward for you now, but it could save your family and your legacy from confusion or conflict later. Consider, as an analogy, consider how we practice fire drills for safety, even though we hope to never face a fire. In the same way, discussing your legacy and your wishes is preparing your family just in case, so they aren't caught off guard. Really keep your family informed as well. Communication is key to effective legacy planning. Once you have your plan in place, inform your family, at least the people who will be affected or have roles to play. For example, if you've named your adult daughter as your financial power of attorney or executor, let her know and make sure she's willing to serve as that executor and understands your expectations. Or if you decide to leave a larger share of your estate to a child with a greater need, it might be wise to explain this to all your children now, rather than them finding out after you're gone. And these conversations can often prevent surprises. It doesn't mean you have to disclose every dollar or detail of your will, but giving a general sense can manage expectations. It often brings relief to family members too, because they know you thoughtfully made decisions and they won't be left guessing. Evolving plans, make sure to keep everyone updated. Life isn't static, and neither is your legacy plan. If your circumstances evolve, say you move states or there's a marriage, divorce, or a new grandchild, you might update your estate documents. When you do, also update your family if it's appropriate. For instance, if you initially named your brother as the executor, but later as your kids are older, you change and name your son as executor, have a conversation with both brother and son about the change. It avoids hurt feelings or confusion down the road. A great practice is to have a brief family meeting or check-in after major life events or every few years, just to say, we've updated our plan, here's what's new. Your life and circumstances will evolve, and proactive communication keeps everyone on the same page. You really want to avoid family conflicts. On that note, lack of communication and planning can lead to a serious family rifts. More than 1/3 of adults say they have experienced or known someone who has experienced a family conflict because an estate plan wasn't in place. We can all recall stories of siblings never speaking again due to fights over an inheritance. You can greatly reduce the risk by being transparent and receiving input if appropriate. Sometimes even a letter explaining your decision can help loved ones understand your reasoning. Proper planning and sharing of the plan is a powerful combination to keep your family strong and bonded. And encourage questions and discussion. When you bring family into the conversation, encourage them to ask questions. Maybe your son wonders why you chose one person as a guardian over another. Explaining your thought process helps him accept it. Or a parent might share information that affects your plan. It becomes a two-way informative process. In this end, legacy planning is as much about the people involved as it is about the documents. By fostering an open dialogue, you show your loved ones that they are central to your plan, and you build trust that will last through difficult times. An action step, really, set aside time to talk with your family or key individuals about your plans. You might say, I want to make sure that you are kept up to date with my wishes and know where the important documents are kept. It could be one-on-one conversations or a family meeting. Use whatever format fits your family style, but commit to having that conversation. It might be one of the most important talks you could ever have with your family.
Hi, Ashby. I'm just going to give you a 5-minute warning because we have 5 minutes before we got to go into questions.
Oh, okay. You want to plan for the unexpected. Life, what if? Life is unpredictable. We hope for the best, but should prepare for the worst. Unexpected events can occur and do occur. Sudden illness, an accident, a job loss, or an untimely death. Being prepared means that if something unexpected happens, your family will have a clear plan to fall back on. Emergency fund and plans. One key aspect of planning is having an emergency fund. I typically recommend 3 to 6 months of living expenses set aside to help your family manage in case you're suddenly unable to earn income for a while. But beyond money, think about an emergency action plan. Does someone know how to access your important documents if you're incapacitated? Do you have a list of accounts or passwords kept securely that your spouse or trusted person can access if needed? Insurance as protection. We'll talk a little bit more about various insurance options later, but it's worth noting here that insurance is a big part of preparing for the unexpected. Life insurance protects your family finances if you pass away unexpectedly. Disability insurance protects your income if you're injured or ill and can't work. Even property insurance and liability insurance protect against accidents or disasters. And then there's incapacity planning as well, but in the manner of time, I will go to life insurance. Really, life insurance is a key planning tool. Life insurance is basically financial protection for your loved ones if you're not around. It provides a lump sum payout, which is called the death benefit, to your beneficiaries if you were to pass away. There are two different types of life insurance. Term life insurance often covers you for a specific period of time, usually 10, 20, or 30 years. It's often chose to match the years when your family is most financially vulnerable. Key points about term insurance: it generally is more affordable than permanent insurance because it's purely insurance. There's no cash value savings component to it. And if you die within the term, it pays out to your beneficiaries. If you outlive the term, the coverage expires. Another policy is a permanent life insurance, or you may have heard of a whole life insurance policy. Permanent life insurance is designed to last for your entire life. It doesn't expire as long as you pay the premiums. And there are different types of term insurance, permanent insurance. Choosing term versus permanent. It often comes up as a question, and it really, you want to cover your basic protection needs with term insurance and look at permanent insurance if you have specific long-term needs or it's part of an advanced plan once these basic needs are covered. Really, if you have loved ones who depend on you financially, evaluate your life insurance coverage. And how much do you need? Deciding how much life insurance to get can seem daunting, but the common rule of thumb is to have a death benefit of around 10 to 15 times your annual income. This is a starting point to ensure your family has enough time to replace your income for several years. You want to consider your family's specific needs. The rule of thumb is just a baseline. The right amount of insurance depends on your unique situation. You can add up your expenses for your family would face upon your death, such as funeral costs, outstanding debt, plus ongoing living expenses and college tuition. So that's something to consider. And really don't forget about inflation and future changes, because with inflation, the purchasing power of your money now is not going to be nearly as much in 5 or 10 years. And you want to review and adjust your insurance policies over time as your situation changes. If you already have life insurance, check the coverage amount and ask if it's still adequate given your current life stage. If you don't have any insurance or think you need more, speak to someone, because it's very important to have that protection planning in place. So the other life insurance options, there are a couple, viatical settlements and life settlements. You can use life insurance while you're still alive. Typically, we think of life insurance paying out after someone's death, but there are options to access the value of the life insurance policy while you're still alive. And two are, one's called a viatical settlement, and the other is a life settlement. Really, a viatical settlement is a way for someone who is terminally or chronically ill to receive an immediate lump sum of cash by selling their life insurance policy. Essentially, a third-party buyer purchases your life insurance policy for a percentage of the death benefit, and the seller or the insured person receives the cash now to use for medical bills. A life settlement is similar, but a life settlement is generally for older individuals who are not necessarily terminally ill. And again, it's basically selling your life insurance policy because you no longer need it or you no longer want it. Important considerations for viaticals and life settlement. It means giving up the death benefit. So you want to make sure that if you're going to receive the cash now, that you understand that you're giving up that death benefit upon your passing. Disability insurance, it provides a source of income to you if you're unable to work due to an illness or injury, and it really protects one of your most valuable assets, your ability to earn income. And so many people don't have disability insurance. There are two different types. One, short-term disability, which usually provided by employers. It covers you for initial weeks or months, usually up to 3 to 6 months after a disability. A long-term disability policy really kicks in after the short-term disability policy ends, and then it can last typically for up to 4 years.
Hey Ashby, I hate to interrupt, and I know because I've seen the slides, we got a lot more to go. So I think what we are going to have to do, Ashby, is because we hit over the 30-minute mark for the course. Can we do legacy planning part 2 if we say Canadian style?
Yeah, part no, absolutely.
Let's plan on that because you got a lot of stuff, and so I don't want people to not get the information. We're just at our time, and I do have a couple questions because I'm putting myself in the member's seat, and I want to ask you 2 questions. I think they're important. The first question is, what is the difference please explain to the layperson who doesn't understand, what's the difference between estate planning and financial planning? And is estate planning only done by the attorney and financial planning only done by the financial planner?
Estate planning encompasses financial planning. So estate planning encompasses financial planning and tax planning. So with the tax planning in conjunction with financial planning, that is part of the overall estate. And as I mentioned earlier in my comments, working with an estate planning attorney and working with those trusted advisors really helps you with each aspect of the estate plan, from your retirement, from, tax savings and tax planning, and from having those proper documents in place to really lay out on paper in a document your stated legacy, what you want with your retirement assets, what you want to happen with your children, where you want your money to go after your passing.
Now we know the correct answer to this following question is yes, you should have an estate planning attorney. But for those people who say, I've downloaded the documents, I've done it all myself, is that going to be adequate, Ashby? What's your advice to them for those that did the DIYers?
The DIYers, typically the DIYers, it's not the best option. I've seen many DIYers where they've had some issues and their estate still goes to probate, where a judge decides how the assets could be dispersed upon passing, and with guardianship as well, who's going to raise the children, the minor children. So I would recommend, yes, there is a cost to working with an estate planning attorney, but in the long term, the benefit is going to well outweigh the costs.
So you did recommend in your presentation that you should start young and start early. So I'm going to say something, you can totally disagree with me, but if you're like a 30-year-old who doesn't have children yet, not too much in assets, you might be able to get away with DIYing it. But once your assets get a little bit more complicated, you have children, you have a family, that's probably not a good thing to gamble.
That's right.
Okay. The following question I have is, I hear a lot of people, now this may have existed for a long time, and I may not, it almost be because of my age, but I hear a certain age demographic who tends to be older than me talk a lot about making sure they're getting their assets put away into a trust so it doesn't get taxed. Can you touch on that? Because I don't know why, maybe it's just my world, but I hear that over and over and over again from people.
Yeah, with a trust, I'm not a estate planning attorney, but with a trust, it does provide some additional protection. And with a trust, there are some tax benefits depending on how the trust is structured and the assets, that are in the trust, and really the legacy planning for those individuals as well. So there can be some tax benefits, but that's when I would recommend, that an individual or a family, that they have that advisory team to work with, financial planner, they're working with a CPA or accountant, and an estate planner as well.
One thing you talked about is you talked about making sure, you document what you want in terms of not just your assets and leaving your assets behind, but you mentioned, and I think in passing, like funerals and things of that nature, right? And what you want. I have to say, I'm just going to share a personal anecdote here where my family, like my Nana, my Aunt Violet, they all did everything. Everything was pre-bought, everything was done. So by the time that they passed, nobody had any questions, nobody had to worry about it. So what a nice legacy to leave behind to your family, right?
Absolutely. And it's difficult enough for families who are dealing with the death. So if they have to deal with, the complexity a lot of times of, the estate going through probate, and in many ways, it could take a long time for, a judge to determine how the assets are going to be, divided after passing. One, it opens it up to public disclosure, and two, it can be very time consuming. So to someone who's going through a difficult family situation, the last thing that they want is to have that additional burden of, the estate going through probate. So it really does simplify the process in many ways and helps make a very difficult time better for, a family involved.
Another piece of advice is if you your family is maybe separated and divided between countries, the laws are different. So the more you get done ahead of time, don't leave it to somebody, a family member who doesn't even know your country to figure it all out.
Well, not only that, it's the laws are different state by state.
Yes.
So that's why, if you move from one state from Virginia to somewhere else, it's always good to just reevaluate your estate plan and your estate planning documents because there might be some legal challenges if if an estate plan is written for, someone living in the state of Virginia and then they move somewhere else. So it's always good when you have that life event just to reevaluate.
I like that. And my last question, I think I've asked you this type of question before, so you're not going to be surprised, but now we're talking about legacy, so it's about context, which is what is a scenario that, worst case scenario you saw before somebody came to you and said, man, I wish I would have fill in the blank.
Well, a scenario, it wasn't a client, but it was a 401k employee, a 401k client of mine. I was meeting with an employee years ago, and his brother recently passed away unexpectedly. The brother was remarried, and his brother's current wife at the time had been paying a life insurance premium for 5 or 6 years. But the beneficiary on the life insurance policy was his ex-wife. So even though the current wife had been paying the premium for, 5, 6, 7 years, she did not receive any of the death benefit. It went to his ex-wife. So that's why I always say, anytime there's a life event, make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. It's always best practice, at least on an annual basis, just to review all your accounts, review all your beneficiaries, and to make sure your beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries, are who you want them to be.
I will just go ahead and apologize for my dark humor in advance. I imagine he probably heard those choice words even after his death.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Ashby. We're gonna have to coordinate offline here when we're gonna do legacy planning part 2, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just send me some dates and we'll get that communicated to everybody. But I want to thank you for your time. And for those who are watching on their own, you have questions, you're watching this and you're like, oh, I have a question. Do not hesitate to contact us. We'll get your question answered. Ashby is a wealth of information. He loves helping people. So, thanks again, Ashby. And as I
Thank
always
you.
say, absolutely, let's evolve together.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.